So here we are again, the last week of December, the last week of the year, where we get all sentimental and look back on the things we did this year. And you know what that means? It's time for my patented let's go over all the anime I watched this year video. It might not be a best of video, or a video about what anime deeply resonated with me this year, but I do always enjoy looking back on the year and making these videos. But you know, this year honestly felt rather short, and I'm not entirely sure how that happened. It's one of those you blink and you miss it moments. It feels just like yesterday when I was watching the fall 2024 shows, but we really are here a year later now, much to my dismay. But well then, let us take a look at all the anime I've seen this year then, shall we? It was quite a lot of anime, that's for sure. 2 years ago I said in that year's video that it was a great year for anime, but was that the case this year? I mean, it wasn't a bad year, that's for sure, but I do feel most of the heavy lifting was done by sequels to beloved franchises from the past few years. I mean, yeah, there were a bunch of new good shows, don't get me wrong. I definitely came across some new favorites, but I felt most of the heavy hitters were sequels. No, not One Punch Man Season 3. Never One Punch Man Season 3. We'll get to that shit show in an hour or so. But Call of the Night returned with this season and would call miles better than the original season. My dress-up darling looked better than ever. Black Butler is still somehow kicking, and everyone enjoys Anya's shenanigans in Spy Family. But I also really enjoyed newcomers like Clevatis, Ninja and Assassin under one roof, and Rock as a Lady's Modesty that had me waiting for the next episodes eagerly. All in all, a very enjoyable year, and we definitely had it worse in the past. Nothing really negative industry-wise either, no massive production fuck-ups or delays. Well, except maybe one certain show, but overall things went fine as far as I'm aware. The cinemas as well were ruled by anime in the later months of the year, with Demon Slayer sweeping up all the money at the box office, followed by Chainsaw Man Rise a month later. And then the Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 pilot if you were into that to close the year off. Anime is bigger than ever, for all the good or bad it may entail when it comes to us as a community. The biggest negative might just be how uncharacteristically bad the fall season was this year around. As usually, most of the heavy hitters are done, but this year? Nah, not really. We all seem to be waiting for the upcoming winter for some reason. But alrighty then, enough ruminating. Get yourself a snack, a drink, and kick back and get comfortable, because this video is going to take a while. As I will now take you through all the anime I watched this year, and what my thoughts are on them. Oh, and if there is any show I particularly enjoyed and would recommend, look for the star next to the name on the bottom of the screen. That's the most of a recommendation that you will get in this video. Alright, let's get this started then, shall we? The winter season was... well, it was quite bad to be honest, at least for my taste in anime. There were really not that many interesting shows, and most of the newly released anime was a variation on either isekai, kick from the party, or some villainous tropes. And, if you haven't been here for the older year videos, you'll have to know that I'm not the biggest fan of these kind of shows. But hey, if every season is like this, at least this video will be shorter than the one from last year, right? Right? So what did I watch then this season? Well, not a lot of shows. Even less considering I dropped 2 shows after 2 episodes. The dubious honor goes to Momentary Lily, which, man, I tried giving Studio Goen's a shot again after years of ignoring what they make, but I regretted that pretty fast. The show is nothing but what I could consider a tech demo on the extravagant camera movement and avant-garde camera angles, while having forgettable characters and an undercooked plot. And that is saying something, because cooking was an act they insisted on spending minutes on in both of the episodes I saw. The other show is Jubel Blood, which I gave a chance as it was a manga people long wanted an anime for, and I have a friend who I recall really liking it. But it was an incomprehensibly rushed production that looked mediocre at best. Easy drop there. Alright, with that out of the way, let's quickly go through the leftovers from last year's fall season first before I get to the new shows. A terrified teacher at Ghoul School stayed good fun, and I tried to deliver some more drama in the second half, and while I wouldn't say it was the best anime ever, it was a fun time. It managed to handle its emotional and serious story beats decently well, which is always a nice surprise if a comedy show can do that and get away with it. And Kenshin finally delivered some solid action, with the result that I quite enjoyed the second season. Though, it did end on a bit of a cliffhanger, and we still don't have an idea when the next season will air, so that kinda sucks. Though and why it was a very enjoyable adaptation of what I later found out to be a 20-year-old manga. And to whoever was on that Anon fan subgroup, while I doubt that any of you happen to see this video, I thank you very much for your service. The translation notes were equally descriptive, explaining more advanced mahjong rules and hands, as they were funny at times. And I've seen there are also sequels to the manga, so it would be really cool if they also got adaptations at some point. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Tying the knot with the Namagami sister kinda lost me in the second half, and stuff all of a sudden got very supernatural. The final episode started off with how the main protagonist must have moved to a different universe by the whim of a god, and he needed to fix the timeline somehow. I'd make a Steins Gate joke here if I cared more about the show, but at least it looked good and it was somewhat enjoyable. But that's about all I can say about this. Trillion Game ended up being alright. I kinda hoped it would be a full adaptation of the manga, but I guess it's still ongoing. And while there was some ominous foreshadowing that Howard was out of the picture in the future, we never got to see what happened to him. I'm still holding on to my theory that all his lying and scheming got up to him in the end, and he's either in jail or the Yakuza cut his wiener off, because he would manage to piss him off somehow. And then we have Orb, which turned out to be an amazing show. It had great character writing and explored what drives human curiosity. It's not going to be everyone's kind of show, but I enjoyed it greatly. I would give this show a 10 out of 10, but since I have to give 10% of all profits to Plotsky, it has to settle for a 9. And last in the ongoing series category, but certainly not least, ReZero returned and delivered an action-packed second half of Season 3, and it didn't disappoint at all. I do have to point out that the Witches Cult animes they fought were a little bit too fond of endlessly monologuing every episode, and I started to get tired of all the yapping at times. And I also expected that some of them would survive for later seasons, but they only defeated 1 out of 4 enemies, which is a lot worse than I thought. But hey, I enjoyed it a lot more than I did season 2, because that just felt like it dragged on at times, and the 4th season should be coming next spring, so I'm looking forward to that. Alrighty then, time for the new stuff. Well, new being a relative term because we had some returning shows here. One of them is Dr. Stone. The first third of it is apparently going to be the last season, and in it, the group went to America in search of materials before setting out to the final boss that is hiding in the moon. Only to get shot as soon as he set foot on land because, well, it's America, baby. Putting Senku against another intellectual villain for once was a great change of pace, and Stanley was a menacing enemy, giving the cast a lot of trouble. The last episode of this part was rather rushed, unfortunately, as issues got resolved really fast, and some got left hanging for later. We'll talk more about it in the summer section when it returned. The other returning show was 100 Girlfriends Who Really Love You, giving us more insane skits than the first season. But some of the new girls I didn't really like all that much, to be honest. The first few especially just kinda fell flat for me and weren't super interesting. The maid did nothing for me, and the foodie was just kinda not interesting. But when the Masters' baseball player joined the team, things finally took a turn for the better. I will be seated for the eventual 3rd season. And now for the actual new stuff, we have Sakamoto Days, a show about a retired hitman that got a family, being really pulled back into the action because a bounty got put on his head. And it got the standard shonen manga fanbase treatment, unfortunately. And with that I mean that in the months leading up to it airing, it got praised to high heavens as people couldn't wait for it to be animated, because it would be the newest, best shonen show on the block. A cycle that happens pretty much every season nowadays, by the way. Only for them to immediately shit on the anime, because it didn't meet their imagined standards of how good it should look, despite it still looking more than fine. Shonen fans will watch and read nothing else, truly are insufferable people. They hype up a show and say it's the best shit you'll ever see, only to then turn on the anime instantly because it filled them in one way or another. I'm not sure if these people have ever read and watched anything else in shonen shows and got spoiled by whatever standard shit like Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer said, but it's a tiresome loud majority these days. You want bad animation? Go with some of this shit, because if this is your competition you'll be more than fine. Anyway, it was a very enjoyable watch and I had a good time with it. People were just hating on it for the sake of it, and it would return in summer with a second core. Then we have Okitsura, which is this year's equivalent of last year's Hokkaido Girls, as it was mostly a show that seemed to emphasize Okinawa, with some light elements of romance comedy on top of it to sell it. The little facts about Okinawan culture were interesting to learn, but I have to say that the Hokkaido girls are much cuter. I'm sorry. The main character also chose the worst Roman option of the two girls that were interested in him, so that was rather disappointing as well. And then it just kinda ended without much of a resolution to anything, after introducing a mystery girl in the last episode, so And finally we have Amaku MD Dr. Detective, or rather, I can't believe Dr. House died and got reincarnated as a sassy anime girl, which was a pretty good watch, at first. The story started off great, but it kinda lost its steam in the second half. Not helped by the fact that in some weeks there was no episode for unknown reasons, and topped off by declining animation quality the longer it went. Which is weird, because you'd think with not airing every other week, it would give the studio more time to work on it, right? But no, that didn't happen. Maybe the studio was preoccupied with something else at that time, I'm not sure. But in the end it resulted in a bit of a letdown, unfortunately. And yeah, that's it. That was winter for me. The best show of the season would be Orb, which while true also feels kinda lame, because it's technically a 2024 show. But what can you do, when life gives you lemons and all that? Let's just move on to spring. The spring season was fairly balanced, with some sequels, but mostly new stuff. A little bit of everything, really. A surprising newcomer I absolutely loved, a disappointing sequel, and a show I expected to love disappointing me greatly. The sequels this season being Black Butler, Fire Force Season 3, Shoujo Season 2, Go Go Loser Ranger Season 2, and surprisingly returning, I've been killing slimes for 300 years. Black Butler was great, the team delivering a solid adaptation of the Emerald Witch arc, which for people that didn't read the manga definitely went places they didn't expect. Sure, maybe it's a bit weird using technology from 40 years into the future of when it's supposed to take place, but technology advanced enough is just like magic, right? But these anime adaptations are getting relatively close to where the manga is right now thanks to it being on a hiatus for over a year. And I wonder if we're getting a follow-up anime season as fast as we got this one, even if that arc is as interesting as a wet fart. What I didn't like, however, is the insane amount of recaps we got every episode, looking at you episode 9 specifically. Why did it have to start with 5 minutes of recap? This is a seasonal show, not a long-running weekly shonen anime. What are these spacing issues? Oh, and the over-abundance of CGI for the most mundane of objects was a bit grating at times, just like last year's season. It certainly did not do favors for the German tank, as it looked like something straight out of a PlayStation 2 game. Fire Force Season 3 was something I was looking forward to a lot, but I'm not really sure if it delivered, seeing this was supposed to be the first part of the final arc and the pacing was really weird. It was great seeing all of the characters again, however I still have no idea how the wound from Soul Eater was supposed to tie into everything, but I guess it was cool to see. It does kinda blow it was only 12 episodes as opposed to a full 24 episode season, but as I said, it is the first part of the finale. And the rest will air in January, so I guess we'll see how it goes. It didn't drop the ball as hard as Loser Ranger did, however. In last year's video I was quite happy about its first season. It had an interesting setup, cool characters, and pretty good production values. Then Season 2 happened and it was about as bad as the Promised Neverland second season. Oh dear, it was a mess that might have just ruined the entire thing for me, honestly. While the first story arc went on maybe a little long and took about 4 to 6 episodes to resolve, everything afterwards was an 90% speedrun. Reveals that should have been important or shocking got handed out every 10 minutes, and nothing got time to sink in or resolve, on top of the animation at times being rough. Well okay, it wasn't that bad. In my Soul Eater video earlier this year, I said that a lot of shows never really get their important downtime in between big fights. And that's something that feels was sorely missing here after the first 5 episodes. And shit, the second half itself feels like it should have been the entire next season altogether with how they rush through important events. A sentiment that the manga readers share. And it's sad, so very sad. I quite like this show. Fighter D is a great character and the universe is interesting. But this left a bitter aftertaste. I'm honestly really disappointed with how much it's let me down. It's just all around tragic, really. Shoujo, however, was still a good show that I enjoyed quite a lot. Not really that much to add here. If anything, it still looks great. The last story arc that it covered, while maybe a slow burn for a lot of people, was a great note to end it on. Overall, it was a really good show. but it is kinda sad that we will not be getting more in the future, it seems, as all of the available story has been adapted now. What I did not expect to return was, I've been killing slimes for 300 years, an isekai I actually had the English novel of before it got its first anime years ago. It's harmless fluff with cute girls doing cute things, probably the only one of these slow life isekais I'll ever end up watching, as this seems to be a subgenre of isekai also pretty saturated these days. Alright, on to the new stuff. Dinner Table Detective took over the patent for seasonal detective show and it was just fine. Instead of the leading moles being super smart detectives, we got a duo of bumbling buffoons. One of them is Mamoru Miyano, hamming it up and screaming wacky nonsense all the time, and the thing we love him oh so much for. The show was alright, I didn't hate my time with it, but I think it is one of those shows that is not going to be remembered in a few years from now, unfortunately. It also had a case where a VTuber was suspected of murder of all things. What do we say about your former? Well, we had a police officer voiced by Kana Hanazawa, a handsome man as a sidekick, and a cybernetic implant that talks to the user and sounds very familiar. Close enough, welcome back Psychopaths. Except, not really. This might just be this spring's, and maybe this year's biggest disappointment for me. The story had all the elements to be something straight up my alley. The story took place in a not too distant future, where we have cyborgs and various cyber and normal crimes that need to be solved. Good ingredients for a great story, except for some bizarre reason, the director in charge decided to skip over the entire first volume. You know, the one that introduces you to the world, and the characters, and all their relationships and all that jazz. So it was exceedingly hard to care about anyone and anything, as we didn't know any of their backstory. And on top of that, the pacing didn't do it any favors. And then they blew up the cat. Did you really have to do this? Sure, it was a robot cat and got brought back later, but still, you don't blow up the goddamn cat, you bastards! Speaking of cats, Me and the Alien Moo was a story about alien cats, seeking subterfuge on Earth in order to study our technology, so they could learn how all of their stuff is made, because despite being highly advanced, they pretty much forgot how to create their own technology. The show kinda made me think of Kuroro Genso, except it were alien cats instead of frogs. It had some funny moments, and it teaches you about electronic devices, which gave me the initial impression that it was aimed at a younger demographic. But then you get really mature and sometimes sexual jokes thrown into the mix, which one countered at the first impression, making it a bit hard to pinpoint what the audience for this one is supposed to be. But I learned some things I didn't know along the way and had some laughs, so in conclusion, it was a pretty good time. But hey, it was spring, so you know what that means. More cute girls doing cute girls. I meant things. And in the last few years that thing seems to be music. Along with them wanting to do their fellow girls. And this year we had Rock as a Lady's Modesty as the next entry into this genre, and it was a great show. It followed a rich girl who had to keep up her appearances that she was a high-class lady, but actually just wanted to rock out and do some shredding on a guitar, which thanks to a fateful encounter she could. And later down the line she ended up forming a band with two fellow schoolmates. It follows the trend of girls band anime that came before it, and it adds in its own things. And you know what? I think I might be a sucker for this genre. The music was good, the drama wasn't overly dramatic unlike last year's Girls Band Cry. And was it Yuri bait? Well, maybe. Though I'll lean into saying that it wasn't, considering how many times these girls said they want to get hot and sweaty with each other, or just admitting they want to get verbally abused by one another. The imagery doesn't help either. Oh, the hate sex between these two would be a sight to behold. What? Don't look at me like that. Don't judge me. Licorice Recall returned with... Wait, fuck, this isn't the second season. It's 6 5-minute shorts. God damn it. At least it was nice seeing Chisato and Takina again. And I guess this was supposed to tide us over for the time being, so I guess I'll take it. But I want that second season already. Hurry up, folks. We had more girl-on-girl relationships airing on the same day with Assassin and Ninja under one roof. Man, the first days were great in spring season. But this relation was very toxic. It was a wonderfully dark comedy that treated the lives of its characters as nothing but expandable. And you think the random ninja of the week getting shanked and dying within 10 seconds of the introduction would get still quick, but it managed to make me laugh every single time at how abruptly they died. And then episode 7 was just downright depressing with how it ended, so much for this being a comedy show. It did have some heartfelt moments to go along with all the doom and gloom and laughs, a catchy opening and ending, and amazing animation by Studio Shaft. It is probably one of the best comedies I've seen in a while, and god, I can only hope we get more of this at some point. And I'll give you bonus points for the ending that was different every episode, making you laugh one more time while the credits roll, and the cute ninjas being turned into a dead pile of leaves while the cute and catchy music plays. This show is easily the best of the season, and is in the running for the best anime of the year for me personally. And then we had Kowloon Generic Romance, which was anything but a generic love story. It was a science fiction mystery dealing with stuff like clones, and a world that might as well be called a budget Matrix going through its own time loop. I really enjoyed the show, though the knowledge that the ending was anime original to some degree, as the manga is still going, might be hurting it a little bit. It's not like the ending was bad, but some stuff did feel lacking, and I don't think everything got addressed in the end, despite the satisfactory conclusion. It did look great as well, going for a fake 90s aesthetic which was a treat to see. Maybe I'll get the manga at some point. Consider me intrigued. We also had Gundam G-Quacks, and I'm not sure if I really feel qualified enough to talk about this one. First off, I enjoyed it. I wish it had more episodes, but it had a good run. Though I had the most fun when Char was on screen. Can you blame me? Sadly, my Gundam knowledge is rather limited, as I've only seen Iron-Blooded Orphans, Witch of Mercury, and the original series. So there probably were a lot of references and reveals that went over my head, unfortunately. Though I did really enjoy episode 2, which was the alternate take on the original events. But as I said, I had a good time with it. And if anything, it has me a lot more interested in watching the older UC series to really get into the thick of it all. Well, what do we have here? Princession Orchestra. Magical girls that transform into music and have to sing through combat to keep them powered up. The girls in question like to kick and punch a lot. Flashy finishing moves. Close enough, I'll come back Symphogear. But it makes sense, because it is from the same creative minds who made Symphogear, but it doesn't really reach the same peaks as it did, however. Probably because it is aimed at a younger demographic, and a bit more of a standard magical girl show, but that's fine. I didn't go into this expecting a new epic like Symphogear. Yet still I couldn't help being a little bit disappointed, as the plot drags on and not much happens on a week-by-week basis at times. Though I guess it is also emblematic of the shows it tries to mimic, aka Precure, and at some points I started cheering for the bad guys instead. 24 episodes in, we got treated to what feels like would have been a series finale in any other show, only for it to continue a new story out the next episode. And honestly, I feel those 24 episodes could have been trimmed down to only 13, with a big amount of filler content going on, and the eternal back and forth between the good and the bad guys. It's still going with the second half right now, but it does feel like they changed the director somewhere along the way, because a lot of the scenes look different to what came before, and the overall vibes are different for some reason. Not saying that it is a bad thing though. But I will see you in next year's video for how this concludes, I guess. And then finally, if I wasn't disappointed enough yet in your former earlier, here was Lazarus shitting in my milk. The expectations of this show are high, maybe too high, as it was created by the same person who made Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, and Christ was this a waste of time. Lazarus was, and I quote this from what I saw someone say, Lazarus is a big stinking pile of doo-doo. The show's premise was that humanity would die in 30 days. Because of a magical painkiller that cures everything, and a group of ex-criminals was tasked to find the doctor responsible. Sounds good on paper, right? It does. But the writers had absolutely no idea how to make this work. And so what followed was 12 episodes of the main cast fumbling around and not finding a single clue. And then all of a sudden it turns out that the person they were looking for already showed up back in episode 3. But they didn't realize it because he was wearing a beanie and sunglasses, despite being distinct enough and sticking out like a sore thumb. And they only found out about this because one of the main characters remembered she had found a pill all the way back in episode 2, but she didn't think it was important enough to get it analyzed until episode 9. It is not like the entire point of your task force was to find clues to begin with. But then you found a clue and you ignored it for the majority of a month? Excuse me? Did you lose your brain somewhere along the way as well? And then to add insult to the injured character of Axel, as he took a spear through the stomach, he woke up the next day and just went to fight an assassin that just kicked his ass, on top of a crumbling skyscraper, and he's completely fine. What the hell? But minor, the animation is good, I hear you say. Yes, and good animation doesn't carry a show alone. Though I guess it does, if your bitch ass is named Solo Leveling, and you're an enemy of the goddamn year because of it. I've complained last year with Demon Slayer that it was all style over substance, and it applies here too. And it doesn't even excuse the animation mistakes in the show, like this motherfucker double jumping. Is he Brazilian or something? Lazarus in mythology was a man from the New Testament who got brought back to life by Jesus, and it is considered one of his greatest miracles. In the case of this anime, it is the biggest mistake ever, and it should be put 12 feet deep underground. And don't even think of touching this one, Jesus, or so I swear. But hey, if every season is like this, at least this video will be shorter than last year's, right? Yeah, do you remember when I said it earlier in this video? And now, do you see what I'm seeing here? Dear Aniki, what is this summer season? Usually it's the fall season that has primo quality shows. Summer is often the downtime between it and spring. This year? Oh hell no, it's the main course. And over half of these, well, were sequels. So I present to you, the summer of sequels. Dr. Stone resumed from earlier in the year, and as he went to America in winter, in summer he went to Brazil in search of the root of the human petrification incident, all the while being chased by Stanley and a group of soldiers he pissed off last Corps. And it does a good job reminding us that if it wants, the show doesn't need to hold back. Episodes 8 and 9 were quite a bloodbath, weren't they? And then followed up by the entirety of episode 11, which was probably the best episode of the entire series so far. God damn it, a great episode it was. It's episodes like these that stay with you when you watch this show. Usually it's fairly easy going, but then it comes in for an emotional gut punch, or it just kills off a bunch of characters out of left field. I do wonder how they want to wrap this up in one more season and go to the moon, however. This seems quite a goal for 12 more episodes if you ask me. Sakamoto Days was also back from this winter, stepping up the action considerably, along with the animation. And the fight in episode 10 especially was a great spectacle to behold. All in all, it is a very enjoyable show to watch, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I would like to see more of it down the line, especially considering it just kinda stopped at a conclusion like this. Dan the Dan was back from last year, delivering us the same wacky action with great animation as last time, though it felt they probably could have made this a perfect 16 episode adaptation, considering how that episode wrapped up the plot until that point. But instead it continued, and kinda made me annoyed at how they kept Gigi/Evil Eye around. Because that issue didn't get solved for a little too long for my tastes, and then they turned him into a total goober. But hey, it was still great, and we will be getting that third season soon enough by the looks of it. Also returning from last year was Skyju number 8, and... yeah, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling this season too much, to be honest. The season started with the tired old trope of Kefka being unable to use his powers because of self-doubt and all the shit that we've seen 2 decades ago with the second Spider-Man movie. And even though it got resolved fast enough, oh no, he can't transform too much or he might actually completely turn into a kaiju. And then that becoming the whole reason he wouldn't want to fight anymore. And then the last few episodes showed off some particularly disturbing looking kaiju, which did kinda get me hyped for the rest of the season, but then there were only 2 episodes left to fight them and, well, that didn't happen at all, and it left us on a cliffhanger to boot. It's also not helping that I hear fans of the series mention constantly that after season 1 is where the plot fell off. I can kinda see why, but it doesn't spark much confidence if any more of this gets adapted down the line. Hey, Production IG, can you instead go back to making more psychopaths for us? I'll sacrifice some people for you if I have to do that. Returning from 2022 was the long-awaited My Dress-Up Darling Season 2. What can I realistically say about this? Man was still adorable, and it was great seeing her and Gojo's relationship continue. They stepped it up in the animation department considerably though. So much little details and exaggerated movements. It all felt so extra. From the same year, Call of the Night returned, giving us probably the best opening song of the entire year. Now, I enjoyed the first season back in 2022 a lot, but this season felt like a massive improvement, when the story turned a lot more serious with its tone. It gave us a season full of what best could be described as doomed Yuri, as to relations with Nazuna went nowhere, except Depression Town. And Denko struggled with losing her family, sending her down a dark path, culminating her in wanting her to take revenge against all the vampire characters we know and love, in a veiled suicide attempt. Really great season, and I would love for it to return in the future with more, I can only hope. A longer awaited sequel was a Grand Blue Dreaming, and hell I've missed these scumbags. The comedy was still top notch, and many oolong tea was consumed, giving you the best summer experience possible. Diving? Nah, we don't do that here. We only cockblock our friends because why should they be happy, am I right? May season 3 be airing sooner than later though, I beg of you. Even longer awaited was something people, me included, didn't expect possible anymore. A second season to Penny's Stocking. And surprisingly, they actually followed up on the cliffhanger from Christmas 2010 and gave the series resolution with an episode-long kick-ass fight. The Demon Sisters ended up joining the main cast, doubling the bitches, and midway through got a duo of angel twins who talked like Zoomers, making the cast even bigger. And the bitches were back in town, and better than ever. Is what I would say, but many people complained about the new dub, which I found possible personally. The only really pain point I had at times was Penty's voice actor didn't really sound that great at calmer moments, but it might just be me. The Demon Sisters sounded very close to the original, and the rest of the cast was just fine too. What wasn't fine, however, was that cliffhanger it ended on, and hopefully it doesn't take another 15 years for us to get a sequel. Last but not least, the final sequel in this list was Rascal Does Not Dream of Santa Claus, which was also a solid follow-up. If maybe not a bit hard to watch for some people, because the movies between seasons did not get licensed and put on streaming services before it aired. Good job, Crunchyroll! Except not really. Well, I guess by technicality, the Demon Slayer movie also counts for summer, so I'm mentioning it here. Also, I have absolutely no footage for this, so enjoy last season's Scooby Tanger in the background for a while. The movie was fine. Definitely a lot more enjoyable than the last season, since it actually had action. The problem is that it really rushes 7 to 8 episodes in a trench coat posing as a movie. Which adds weird pacing issues, as you could notice where episodes would end, so to say. Also, ending the movie with a finishing blow into a 20-minute flashback before the guy actually died is certainly a choice, to say the least. I get that they want to give us a faithful adaptation that covers everything, but for the sake of this being a movie, maybe you shouldn't have done that. And you should have left that for the inevitable anime recut with added footage that will release regardless in a year or something, if Mugen Train is anything to go off. It was a fine watch in cinemas, but now we have to wait for the drip feed of movies over the next few years. Oh dear, I'm not looking forward to that in the slightest. That's going to be another 5 years of Demon Slayer discourse, isn't it? Phew, that were all the sequels. This might be the first season with so many sequel shows for me, and while there were quality shows, the new shows weren't any slouches either. Well, most of them. Some are just fine. Takupi's original sin was as traumatic as I remember the manga being, so I wonder why I went on this wacky ride for a second time in the anime. The story is about a little alien named Takupi, who comes across a little girl, and all he wants to do is make her smile, and that's where the struggle begins. The girl in question, Shizuka, is being bullied at school every day, her belongings keep getting trashed or going missing, and everything goes to hell when she loses her dog, culminating in, well, you can probably wager a guess where all of this goes, except you don't, as things get so much worse the further it goes. And so begins Takupi's desperate mission to make a girl happy, at any cost imaginable. And I quite literally mean any cost. It's a ticket straight to hell with this one. The animation, the voice acting and the music all came together to make this a wonderful 6-episode adaptation. A horrible wonderful anime if you will. It was great, it's suppressing, and it was not for the faint of heart. Clavatus turned out to be an unexpected favorite among all the newcomers. With the plot that kinda made me feel like I was watching an 80s fantasy movie, where an evil demonic beast takes care of a human baby to learn what humans really are like, and a female soldier named Alicia tagging along as caretaker/hostage for the demon Clavatus. As they set out on an adventure to protect the baby from bandits and royal factions who want the kid for their own gain. It was a fantasy show that was quite well realized, with a good amount of world building, and no RPG skills or stat screens of any kind around to be seen, which is a refreshing thing to see among the myriad of low-effort isekai and fantasies with game skills being pumped out every season. The second season has also already been confirmed to be in the works, and I'm very curious to see where that will go. I can't wait to see it. I also made a video last month in a desperate attempt to convince more people to go watch this show. As thanks to all the heavy-hitting sequels, I feel this one went under the radar of many people. So, take this as a second endorsement from me, that you need to go watch it as soon as you're done with this video. Summer also has from Yuri, in 2 different flavors. Bad Girl was a show that kinda baited me with its premise. It was about a goody two-shoes girl trying to be a delinquent to get the attention from the class president she actually had a crush on. The thing is, she never got really far with this delinquent act of hers, and the entire idea of her even trying to be bad was dropped pretty fast. You're a fucking bitch-ass poser, you know that? Anyway, it was still a fun Yuri rom-com. Maybe not the best of its kind I've seen, but serviceable. I'm mostly just disappointed that this didn't end up being what I wanted it to be. We had more Yuri, but... okay, these names are getting silly. There is no freaking way I will be your lover, unless... or rather, Watanabe for short. So, I might have been making jokes about anxious pink-haired girls just being botchy for 2 years now, but it is too easy not to. Especially when in this case, it's literally a pink-haired introverted girl, who reinvents herself to live out her high school dreams. Except in this one, she becomes part of the popular girls group, that turns out to be full of raging lesbians. But followed by 12 episodes of gay panic, as she slowly amassed herself a Yuri harem, with hands getting held, kisses being shared, and titties being fondled. So basically it was a pretty good time, except for when Mai was on screen. Because she's an egocentric little shit that doesn't take no for an answer and will ruin anyone's relationship to get what she wants. I hate Mai. All of my homies hate Mai. Fuck Mai. We didn't only have gay girls this season, but also gay guys, with the summer Hikaru died. Don't you just hate it when your crush dies and comes back possessed by a curse god from beyond the void, and you're hunted down by discount Gojo who wants to get rid of him? Yeah, that's pretty much what the show is about. And this is probably why all the production values and time from Psy Games' animation studio went, instead of Loser Ranger. It was a very good and unsettling horror show, with a helping of doomed yaoi. Great watch all around. Also, whose idea was it to make Ida Kata from AKB48 the first ending song? Gave the employee a raise. We had more spooky yokai stuff with Dengen no Mogura, which was a supernatural slice of life comedy story? Was it comedy? It was maybe a little thing. It was a story about 2 college students coming across an immortal hermit that got kicked out of heaven and had to find his way back in by collecting spirit fire from ghosts. The show was fine. I do enjoy my supernatural yokai themed shows, you know that much, but I do have to admit that the character designs were kinda lacking gorm at times. Was it the greatest thing ever? Nah, but I surprisingly enjoyed the shenanigans the characters got into on a weekly basis. And there was one more yokai themed show with Hell Teacher Nube. A reboot of a 90s series about a teacher who protects his students from all kinds of monsters. And he is that one man with a demon sealed in his left arm that all Chunia kids around the world aspire to be. You could notice the overall designs were more 90s in style, and while the show is mostly a Monster of the Week affair, it had some very solid episodes and it looked nice all around. It kinda has me interested in checking out the original show sometime in the future, but for now I will look forward to the second half that will be airing in January. Much like last year, we had the one show hyped up as the best comedy of all time, with City the Animation, and... yeah, the animation was great and all, but this really was not the show I expected it to be. As everyone in Dagrama advertised this as an absurdist comedy that would be the best of all time, and it barely made me laugh at all. I'm getting some deja vu here with last year's Nokutan. Hell, even that show made me laugh more despite all the shit I gave it. Hey, laughing 3 times is still more than not laughing at all. Meanwhile, on the other hand, detectives these days sure are crazy came out of nowhere and claimed the crown of the funny show of the season, maybe even of the year. With a doctor detective in winter, 2 thrilling detectives in spring, and now an old man detective supported by an unhinged high school girl, along with many jokes about getting older sucking with all the impracticalities aging up brings. Wait a minute, he's not that old, he's around my age. And some of those pains are kinda relatable though. Ah, fuck. Yes, another detective show. I know. That's one every season now. No, I'm not sorry. Deal with it. Night of the Living Cat also falls under the comedy part of the season, but it kinda was a one-trick pony. The premise of it is a zombie outbreak, but the zombies are replaced by cats, and they turn you into cats when they touch you. Which resulted in survivors constantly fighting off cats while apologizing to them, because they're just too damn cute. And I agree, cats are cute. It was fine for what it was, full of horror movie homages, but sadly not as funny as I would have hoped it would be. There is only so much you can do with a single joke after all. And speaking of comedy, we also have Nukitashi the Animation. Oh boy, this one was brilliant. I can't really show you too much of this one because of the constant sex going on in the background of most shots. The premise of this show is 2 siblings stuck on an island, with a law that any sexual activity is encouraged, and if you do not agree to it, you get punished. And to protect his little lesbian sister in his own manhood, Shinosuke took the fight to the ones in power. It's by all means an ecchi show, with all the constant sex on the screen in the foreign background, ass and boob shots galore, but It also facilitated hilarious comedic scenes. From the opening parodying unlimited blade works with vibrators, to a sex scene which climax resulted in being run over by a truck gun. It made me laugh out loud more than it made me horny. I don't know if they will ever attempt to animate the sequel source to the visual novel, but that's fine, as I have bought the game a long time ago already. Ruby Rocks was a cute girls do cute things show, in which the cute things were gems and other shiny rocks. It was actually pretty informative, explaining on how certain minerals form and where they can be found, though I do feel it is actually a fantasy show, as I don't think you can literally find piles of gems in every random forest as the Jactus did. But to top it off, the animation was beautiful and all the gems looked amazing. Last but certainly not least, we have Gachi Yakuta. If you like shonen trash, keep on looking, because while this show might have moments of trash, it is anything but. Our boy Rudo gets kicked out of his world's consumerist paradise and gets thrown into the trash, which makes him angry and he wants to go back to kick some sense into people. It is a wonderfully stylized show with some amazing fights, great characters, creative powers, and it's all in all just an amazing production by Studio Bones. This show was put on my radar as it was written by one of the assistants who worked on Soul Eater back in the day, and yeah, you can see aspects of the series style shine through here. I really ended up enjoying this one a lot, hoping it gets a sequel in the future, but there is a high chance I will pick up the manga before that. So this is a weird one. I've never seen this before, you see. Usually the fall season is the season. The season with the most new shows, the most highly anticipated shows, the biggest season in general, bar maybe spring, and if summer was the most stacked summer season in the 15 years I've been watching anime, then this has to be the worst fall season I've ever witnessed. There's barely any greatly anticipated new shows, no hyped up sequels, nothing. Sure, there are a bunch of shows this season, but nothing really super interesting and nothing really stands out. Of course you have your slew of isekai, but even from what I've heard of people who actually enjoy those, the batch this season is undercooked at best. It just all feels so weird to me. Well, if anything, I appreciate the little breather. Summer season was massive, and the upcoming winter season is shaping up to be a honestly legendary season with how many high-profile sequels we're getting. So, I will take the calm before that storm, and it is a good time to get around to watching some old stuff that I haven't seen yet. As for the things that I did watch this season, starting with the sequels, Spy Family was back, and what can I say really? The show is fantastic, as long as you accept there is never any plot progression going to happen, ever. I also don't think the first episode they had was the best hand they could play, as it was just any other episode with no interesting hooks or twists. And I feel it should have been moved back to after Twilight's backstory, as that would have been a way stronger start. But after that it was just back to the usual shenanigans, along with a pretty good bus hijacking story arc midway through the season. The opening this season got though, was probably the worst this series has ever had. Then again, I don't think anything is going to beat the second opening and ending from the first season, those were just too good. Ranma and Half also returned from last year and was more good fun. But I still don't think I can rate it above the Urusei Yatsura remake, simply because I like the zany bonkers comedy there more. Shimpu easily is the best girl of the series though, followed by Akane's sister. Sally Ranma does not have a good taste in women. This season the mainly got harassed by old people it seems, a grandma with gremlin energy constantly messing him up, and a perverted grandpa that people seem to hate, but he ain't that bad. He doesn't even show up all that much. He's just not a stereotypical pervy old guy. Also counting as a sequel is the Chainsaw Man Rize Arc movie, and it was pretty fucking good. Just like with the Demon Slayer movie, there was no footage available for it, so have some season 1 visuals. I was quite whelmed by the first season when it aired 3 years ago. Not like it was bad, but it didn't really live up to the hype that was promised by everyone. But I dare say the movie has turned me into a fan, and it was quite the bombastic spectacle to behold. It looked better than a TV anime, no CGI Denji jumping around the place, and the calls were much more vibrant. The romance story between Rize and Denji was bittersweet, and the action, no, the entire last half hour was absolutely amazing. Take notes of this, Demon Slayer, this is how you finish off a movie. And Rize herself is too cute. I don't get why all you guys are simping over Machina. You guys have no taste, I'm afraid. But here's hoping that for whenever the second season rolls around, Appa can keep this energy and production going. And hopefully sooner than later. I don't want to wait another 3 years for the sequel. That's about all of the sequels this season. Not really much of them this time around, huh? I tried to forget it, but Garo just kept sliding into this video, huh? Well, One Punch Man Season 3 is tragic, really. Now look, I'll go on record saying that I actually enjoyed Season 2. Sure, it didn't look as good, but the story was getting more interesting than it just being a single comedic punchline. But after this I expect all of you Season 2 haters to apologize to it, because what in the flying fuck was this? This is what we waited 6 years for? How is this property so mishandled by Bandai Namco? They should rename it to One Punch Man Handled. I'm not much of a Sasuke slop as some YouTubers out there, and I can live with some rough animation in my shows, but this was just too painful to ignore here. It just kept taking me out of it. Every conversation was so lifeless, and there were so many of them. It's not like the content itself is any interesting either, because it was just endless talking and hero politics. At least you can laugh at the comically bad animation, as there aren't even many jokes made worth laughing at. The fighting scenes were questionable at most, and even Saitama himself barely showed up, as he was just chilling in his apartment doing shit for most of it. When episode 8 rolled around, I was actually surprised that the episode looked passable compared to anything that came before, so maybe they were saving their budget for the last episodes. But at the time of writing this, I can't tell you if they kept this up until the end. You know, maybe One Punch Man should have never gotten more than a singular season 10 years ago. It would have been a perfectly fine comedy action show with amazing animation, and everyone would have loved it for the rest of time. But it ended up turning into what it originally tried to parody, marred with abysmal animation on top. It's so sad, really. Well, with that out of the way, let's look at a few new shows that I did watch. Not that there were many interesting things standing out. There was one show I did look forward to, however. This Monster Wants to Eat Me. I've been a fan of the manga since the English release 2 years back, and I've been cautiously looking forward to this adaptation. We follow a depressed suicidal girl who runs into a mermaid that wants to kill her, but only when the time is right and she's at the most tasty, as disturbing as that might be. It's an at times depressing supernatural Yuri show that's probably going to get some comparisons with last season's Hikaru. Also, while the studio working on this doesn't have the most renown and budget, they made it work really well and they did their best with what they had, unlike a certain Baldman show I mentioned. This is probably my favorite show this season, but I will admit I'm heavily biased here. Not Yuri really, but a mangaka's weirdly wonderful workplace was a comfy slice of life show, following a mangaka and her, well, workplace shenanigans. I know it's once again easy making a bocce joke about her personality and how she gets anxious about a lot, but she quite literally turns into a pink blob herself, so I don't think I have to make that joke. It was a fine comfy time, maybe with some Yuri undertones, as she was crushing quite heavily for her editor, but not really much to add here. Touring after the apocalypse was also cute girls doing cute things, kinda I guess, as they toured around the world after a non-specified world-ending event. Or at least with humanity ending, as there were no other people to be found, only left behind AI and androids were found. Which includes the companion the main character travels with, as I was quite surprised when her arm turned into a cannon in the first episode. And while humanity might be gone, the show taught us that Sword Art Online proves to outlive us all. So what if you are a kid and your superpower is turning into a buff Santa Claus? Well, that's what Santa is all about. It seems that Science Sour is taking a liking to adapting the wackiest of shonen out there and granting them amazingly stylized anime. The premise is just as weird as it sounds. The main protagonist Santa turns into Santa, and he fights with two skis coming out of his feet like some sort of weird holiday-themed knockoff Wolverine. It has some decent action and it can be quite funny at times. But then at a later point, it also talked about the topics of puberty, love and homosexuality with a surprising nuance I didn't expect, and it pulled it off quite well. It's always a nice surprise how a wacky show which mainly has a premise for comedy manages to pull off deeper themes like it's nobody's business. This was probably the dark horse anime this season that most people slept on, unfortunately, because it was great. Next up, we had Nausea. It's a story about a spaceship that got infiltrated by the evil no-shell lifeform, aka Imposter, and the other civilians, or rather crewmates, would have to play a game of werewolf every day in order to put someone in cryosleep, in hopes to oust the imposter. Yeah, it's just fucking Among Us the anime. And while it makes sense for a game, I'm not sure if it lends itself well when trying to set up a more realistic scenario. Why can't you not just let people hang out in space in groups, while the ship scans the people on board to check if they are imposters or not, instead of setting up this whole game plan? And does it really make sense that the imposter can only specifically kill when the ship is in warp drive, despite it probably being possible to commit the murder when no one else is looking? No, not really. No reason it couldn't. And while it would work for a game, sometimes it's frustrating here. You have a bar on the ship, they got plenty of opportunities to poison drinks. No, I guess we have to follow the game rules. Oh well. It is full of surprising twists and turns, and I'm enjoying it very much. But why is this alien never wearing any pants? To show off how kicked up he is? Whatever, I love him. Okay, I'll be honest, I wouldn't be watching the new Digimon series if this season wasn't as bad as it is, but here we are. But I can't say I regret it, as it is a pretty solid watch. I haven't really kept up with the Digimon franchise, and I haven't really seen any of the newest shows, other than that abysmal Adventure reboot a few years back. But I'm enjoying this just fine. Geckomon is a lovable goober, and the characters are likable enough, and it looks quite good too, except maybe the mirror world, which feels rather uninspired. The action is pretty fine as well, but it's not like there's much competition in the action department this season other than Santa. I hope it keeps it up for the remainder of its run though, considering this will be a year-long show. Stay tuned for the update next year, I guess. And lastly we have Shabaki, which was advertised as a detective show with yokai, but there wasn't that much detective stuff happening until the last third. It's a slow burn, and I don't mind it, but whoever wrote the summary for this show when I checked the list could have worded this better. This feels like false advertisement. And this makes me quite sad. It means no proper detective show this season to continue the streak we had going for a year, started by last year's Ron Kobayashi season 2. Man, I missed my quirked up detective. Damn it Ron, come back for another season. Shabaki was a perfectly fine story about a sickly kid in the Edo period and his yokai caretakers, and I did end up enjoying this, even if it isn't what I expected it to be. And that wraps it up. That's every single anime I've seen this year. Probably the most seasonal shows I've seen in a year as well. But I do have to point out that there are some sequels I expected to get this year that we didn't get surprisingly. Bleach's final season is completely off the radar, and MASH also didn't show up, but I guess that is what we have next year for. Oshinoko is also one of those shows, and it will be airing in January, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see for the rest. In the end I would say that Ninja Assassin was probably my favorite show of the year, but really, there are a bunch of great shows that I very much enjoyed. Not you, Lazarus, never you. Fuck you for wasting my time. As for next year, I hope it is at least as good as this year, even if it might be hard to contend with the summer season we had. Though the aforementioned winter season is looking to be great. On the other hand, I'm also kind of fearful for the immediate future, with companies like Amazon showing this month that they won't hesitate to cram AI into anime because they can, really. Or to continue the decline of Crunchyroll, as shitification yet goes on over there, as we've seen with the subtitle service recently. And on top of that, there is also something to be said for the seemingly ongoing censorship war being waged with the big card companies cutting off Japanese stores, and governments cracking down on freedom on the internet. These things inadvertently affect anime and everything else from Japan, as they're being forced to comply with some backwards arbitrary standards, just because anime daily scare them. I find it hard to not be fearful of all the nonsense that has happened over the year, and for the things yet looming ahead of us. Anyway, that is a depressing monologue to be had in the video of its own, if I feel like going in on it deeper. And not in this video that is a celebration of this year's anime. So let's just hope we can keep watching our anime in relative peace in the upcoming years. If that doesn't happen, I say we bring back the guillotine. But yeah, this pretty much marks the end of this video, and the end of the year on top of that. I hope it was a good one for you, be it anime-wise or in general. And I say that, but there are some shows that ended up getting a special episode around Christmas, and I sadly wasn't able to include those because, well, that's still a week off from now. So let's just hope the Undead Unlock Winter OVA, the Kaguya-sama New Year special, and the last episodes of What and Now that are currently still missing in action are great too. Regardless of all that, I thank you all very much for watching this self-indulgent video. And do let me know if there's a show I slept on this year. As with the sheer amount of anime, it is very easy to miss a few. And here is where I plug the usual YouTube stuff that everyone does, much as I dislike doing it. but it is how the website works sadly. So please leave a like if you liked the video, and maybe even subscribe to the channel. Or go check out my streams on that other site if you want to hang out. I stream a variety of games pretty much daily. I am Ina, and once again, I thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you all have a great 2026, and hopefully I'll see you all again in next year's video. Sayonara.